Fox 40 studios in the Southern Tier, it's time for the Sports Roundup.
The Visions Veterans Memorial Arena in downtown Binghamton. The site where the Binghamton Black Bears hammered the Watertown Wolves 7-2 on April 20th to secure a spot in the Federal Prospects Hockey League semifinals, and then this past weekend beat the Motor City Rockers in dramatic fashion to thrust the team to its first ever Commissioner's Cup final. Good evening and thank you for joining us for this latest edition of the Fox 40 Sports Roundup, brought to you by Simmons Rockwell Ford. As always, I'm your host, Ian Mills.
From the Fox 40 studios in the Southern Tier, it's time for the Sports Roundup.
Coming up tonight on the Roundup, we relive the Black Bears' historic season. All of it, the winning streaks, the division clincher, the special nights, and most importantly, how the Binghamton Black Bears hoisted the Commissioner's Cup at home in front of thousands of Binghamton fans. All that and more coming up right now on the Fox 40 Sports Roundup. Good evening and thank you for joining us for our latest edition of the Roundup, brought to you by Simmons Rockwell Ford, your one-stop shop for all things Southern Tier sports.
Move from the future Mets of tomorrow to the man right in front of us, Jacob Wilkins. We'll talk about you. I mean, you're a veteran play-by-play guy for the Rumble Ponies. We'll ask that. I mean, what has been your favorite game or moment as a member of the Rumble Ponies organization?
You know what? They keep on growing. I think back when I started here in 2019.
4 home runs in the NCAA tournament with the James Madison Dukes. You guys need 2 wins to advance. What's the mindset going into that Sunday?
Yeah, the mindset was really we're playing with house money. Like, we weren't supposed to be there. We were 63 of 64 getting into the selection show.
What, as a team and as individuals, what do you want out of basketball in life?
Me as an individual, I'm trying to make the most out of basketball. The highest goal for me is to be able to go to the league. But right now, you got to take one step at a time. So right now, the next step for me is Division I basketball, free. So, yeah.
And what did getting that offer from Manhattan? I mean, that was first Division I offer. We'll start with this. How did you develop a culture where girls are buying in despite being 0-4 and trying to, guys, climb out of that hole that was built early on?
Well, one of the biggest things that we always talk about, win or lose, you always have to focus forward.
How good CMAC has been over the last couple of games. You mentioned the fans will go there. How important was getting home ice advantage for games 3, 4, and 5 for this series?
It's absolutely huge. So Carolina is in the finals for the second straight season. Last year when they played Danbury, they won their 2 games at home.
Sponsored by Simmons Rockwell Ford. Joining us now is 2-time All-American and one of the most decorated Binghamton University athletes of all time, wrestler Lou Dupre. Lou, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to start here. You've had quite the past year, right? Last January, a season-ending injury that might have turned potentially career-ending, right, in your last year. Walk us through how you felt then and how you've bounced back over the last 12 months.
To be honest, it definitely sucked, but I relied a lot on my faith. I just kind of thought God had something planned for me.
Win, and in their second duel of the night, the Bearcats would down Buffalo 31-3, while BU's ranked wrestlers Jacob Nolan, Lou Dupre, Brevin Casella, and Corey Day each go undefeated at home. The Bearcats remain home for their next 2 weekends against Navy, Army, Harvard, and Brown. And speaking of wrestling, let's bring in our live reporter Thomas Turgeon for a look at the Section 4 girls wrestling qualifiers hosted by Whitney Point. Thomas, what do you have?
Thanks, Ian. Obviously here at Whitney Point, where the Section 4 state qualifiers were taking place a couple hours ago. Obviously, win on the new year. One will change after tonight. Ian, back to you.
Thanks, Tommy Boy. Shirley, a great game ahead of us. We'll have the highlights tonight at 10. Good evening and thank you for joining us for our latest edition of the Roundup, brought to you by Simmons Rockwell Ford, your one-stop shop for all things Southern Tier sports. I'm your host, Ian Mills. We are halfway through the sectional basketball tournaments, and this a dynasty really at this point, 3 straight championships. And speaking of dynasty, the Binghamton Black Bears aren't quite there yet. Welcome back to the Fox 40 Sports Roundup, sponsored by Simmons Rockwell Ford. Let's wrap up with your Binghamton Black Bears, who had a chance to secure the top spot in their division this weekend. Otherwise, that's all we have for you tonight in this edition of the Fox 40 Sports Roundup. Howard, host of the Power Play Post Show and an expert on Binghamton hockey in general. Bob, thanks for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me on, and I'm glad my prediction holds.
It really goes back to my college days. I went to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which isn't exactly a hotbed for producing media members.
That's really the one thing I strive for. So if not that, then...
Welcome back. Vessel had a pair of great squads playing in the state semis as well in lacrosse and softball. We'll begin with the Golden Bears lacrosse squad. Let's waste no more time and get to the girls side as Section 4 hoops start to ramp up. Welcome back to the Fox 40 Sports Roundup. We recapped a bunch of games already, but let's take a look back and pick which plays amongst them were the best in plays of the week.